What's up, AP Music kids? We're going to talk about non-chord tones. Remember that big old packet that I gave you a long time ago that had this page on it, non-chord tones? This big old packet. There's like lots of exercises following it. Okay, this is what we're looking at today. Non-chord tones. I will start by saying we will never ever compose, that is write when we are part writing, non-chord tones. This is only so we know how to recognize them when we are doing an analysis of music that's already written, okay? You don't have to use non-chord tones on the AP exam, and they just complicate your life, so don't until you have to. You can do that in college. Get your life more complicated. Non-chord tones may also be sometimes referred to as non-harmonic tones. You'll sometimes see them abbreviated as NCT for non-chord tones or NHT for non-harmonic tones. Means exactly the same thing. It means there is a pitch somewhere in our chord progression that does not fit with the harmonic analysis. So if I've got a dominant chord, like a 5/7 going to 1, a non-chord tone would be a note that is not in either of those two chords. Or sometimes not in that chord as a resolution, which we're going to talk about those. So the two most basic types of non-chord tones are passing tones and neighbor tones. Passing tone, by definition, moves by step between two chord tones. So you'll look in this first example here, it says unaccented passing tone. That means it's occurring on a weak beat. So in this case, our strongest beats in the measure are 1 and 3, where our half notes would be. Beat 2 in relation to those beats is weak. So this is considered unaccented. In the next one, it says accented passing tone. That's occurring on beat 3. That one in parentheses is the accented passing tone. And then it resolves to a chord tone on a weak beat. So if it's on a weak beat, it's unaccented. Sometimes it'll be beat 2 or beat 4 if you're in 4/4. Sometimes you'll see it as eighth notes. That's pretty common also to see eighth notes as unaccented passing tones. And then accented passing tones will occur on the beat, either 1 and 3 if you're dealing with big beats like this, or on downbeats if you're dealing with eighth notes, okay? So here's an unaccented passing tone. I've got a C major chord here, C, E, G, and then this D doesn't fit into that C major chord anywhere. That's why it's a non-chord tone, because it's not part of this chord, all right, even though it happens during this chord. And then I'm resolving to an F major. C to F major is a 5-to-1 relationship, all right? That would be what kind of cadence? Yes, an authentic cadence. Is it perfect? No, it's imperfect because the soprano is not on do, even though they are both in root position. Okay, here's what it sounds like. There's that passing tone. All right, here's an accented passing tone. So we're going to hear that chord's all fine. Everything is a chord tone. And then that doesn't fit, but then it moves to the C. All right, so that's your accent and passing tone. Neighbor tones, even simpler. You've got one voice holding the common tone, and in between, it goes either up or down by step, either one. Both examples they showed here of unaccented and accented are below. These are considered lower neighbors, but it can be an upper neighbor as well. So here's what the unaccented neighbor tone sounds like. Excuse me, should move to the D in the soprano quicker. And then here's an accented neighbor tone. Doesn't sound awful, you know, but if we're playing any note in the scale, it's going to sound okay in some manner to our ears, because that's That's what we've done with modern music. All right. The next type of non-chord tone are suspensions and retardations. So a suspension is when you have a note in the first chord that holds over into the second chord, but it doesn't belong to that second chord, and so then it must resolve down by step. A retardation is exactly the same thing, except it resolves up by step, if you'll see where they've got the retardations. There's a lot of different examples here. These are the two I want you to be familiar with, the 4-3 suspension and the 9-8 suspension, and retardations by association, okay? These are the most common, and I'm not even going to talk about these other ones because you won't encounter them in this course. Okay, again, leave that for college. Here's what they sound like. So this is going to be my suspension. Listen to that one. Ooh, that's nice. Very nice. I could make it a retardation by instead of resolving this C down, I could go up to D. So let's hear that as a retardation. And then we go to although that doesn't give me a chord, that gives me open fifths. All right, but that's the idea. Here's a 9/8 suspension. So-called, these are because this is the interval over the bass that we see here. So you have a fourth over the bass. That's your non-chord tone, that fourth, that C that we heard in the first example. And then it goes to the third above the bass, which is part of the chord. So 9/8, that would be like hearing an octave above this. We have G as our root here. So A is a ninth above G. It's going to resolve down to G to 8, the octave. So here's what that 9/8 suspension sounds like. I'll try that one more time. Here's the 9/8 suspension. And then a retardation also, of course, would mean it resolves up instead of down. Okay. On the next page, non-chord tones continued. We have a classification of neighbor non-chord tones called incomplete neighbor non-chord tones, also known as appoggiatura and escape tone. These are buddies because they do the opposite things. An appoggiatura means your non-chord tone is going to be approached by skip from the first chord and then resolved by step. Okay, so in this case, the soprano has skipped down, space to space is a skip, skipped down to that A and then stepped up to the B, which is part of that chord. We have first chord, all right, and then it goes here. That doesn't fit. Now it fits, all right? And unaccented appoggiatura, same thing as with the passing tones and the neighbor tones. It means it's just happening on a weak beat versus a strong beat. Be that eighth notes, quarter notes, whatever. Escape tone is the opposite of appoggiatura. Appoggiatura goes leap, step. Escape tone steps and then leaps down to its resolution. So here's our escape tone example here. Right? Would this be considered accented or unaccented, this example here? It's unaccented because it's occurring on beat 2, and our harmonic rhythm is changing on beats 1 and 3, right? I have a new harmony on beat 3. 1 and 3 are my strong beats. Again, it could also be up beats of eighth notes, right? So don't worry about all that gobbledygook. Remember, appoggiatura is leap step. Escape tone, imagine if you had to escape from a burning building, you would need to step up onto the windowsill and then leap out of the building onto the street in like New York, I guess, someplace where you don't live on the ground floor. Not great for our county, but anyway. Okay, other non-chord tones, neighbor group. So this means we have an upper and a lower neighbor. All right, can appear in any order. Anticipation is the opposite of a suspension in kind of a different way. It means that we have a chord tone that comes too soon, right? So this D is the non-chord tone. That's why it's in parentheses or circled here. But it belongs not in this chord, but in this one. Okay. And then finally we have pedal tone, which just means you've got the same note repeated in the bass. That one's super easy to spot. It's also pretty easy to hear because the bottom note just keeps repeating. All right. So how do you know if you have a non-chord tone if you're looking at one? Because we've had these pointed out for us on here, but what if you were looking at this measure and you didn't see the parentheses there? How would you know, is this going to be an accented non-chord tone on beat 1, or is that the non-chord tone? Well, the answer is build a snowman. So if you are building a snowman, you go, okay, C, G, those are spaces. Oh, look, there's an E there. Okay, I'm going to put E right there. And then C, oh, yep, C fits in my snowman. That's not your non-chord tone. D, can we fit D here as part of the snowman? Nope, not adjacent to this anyway. It'd have to be up here, which would be some kind of tall chord, which is not the century we're dealing with. All right, so if you have something like that where in order to get all your notes on space, 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 or line, 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 or if you're dealing with 7th chords, remember those happen to space, 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 right? This could be a B. Would that be a non-chord tone? Kind of looks like an anticipation because there's a B right here, but it could be part of a 5/7 chord. So it would not be considered if you can reasonably, logically analyze it. All right. You're not going to see weird stuff like 3 chords in first inversion or like a 7th chord. That's a triad that I don't know. You know, you're not going to see weird stuff. So like if you see weird stuff, chances are you've got some type of non-chord tone. So what I would like you to do is take a look at the second example on this Ach Gott und Herr by J.S. Bach. All right. The top does not have non-chord tones. The bottom does. What I'd like you to try is go through here. So you're going to have to do a full analysis of this, right? Can't analyze if something's a non-chord tone unless you know what chord you're trying to fit it into or not. Go through, fold this in half if you have to. Try and analyze this. You can copy it onto another piece of paper if you want more space, okay? And then go back and check. These are the chord tones, these quarter notes shown here. All right, so example, I'm just going to jump to 8th notes because 8th notes scream non-chord tones to me. Looking in measure 1 at the alto right here, I have an E and a D. The E is up here in the top example. That means the E is part of that chord. That means my D is a non-chord tone. And what do we do with people who don't fit in? We point at them and call them names. So you're going to circle it and you're going to label it. I'm going to look at how it is approached and how it is resolved. So I'm going stepwise between the note before it and stepwise to the one after it. That would be a passing tone, which you can abbreviate PT. All right. Let me find another one here. Ooh, this one's a good example. So over here, just a quick glance up shows me I do not have, sorry, I'm gonna move this a little closer. There we go. Stay. Cool. Over here at the end of the third full measure, measure 3, I've got some eighth notes here. I do not have eighth notes up here. So something in here is a non-chord tone. All right. I'm going to cheat to start with and see that this is B. And in fact, you know what? I don't care if you do that. Go ahead and just cheat and look up here. Right. So the B is a chord tone. So that means this C is not. So we're going to circle it. Now, what do we call this? This is being approached by step and then resolving by leap. What do we know that goes step, leap? That's right. If you're escaping a burning building, you have to step up onto the window ledge and leap down onto the street. It is an escape tone, E-T. All right. And at this point, if you find an accented one, like let's pretend that our passing tone over here was accented, that it occurred on the beat somehow. All you have to do is put an accent on it like that, just like you would put an accent on a note that you're playing. Okay, so if it's unaccented, just abbreviate it, PT or ET. If you're not sure how to abbreviate it, just write a little note and we'll go over those in class. Okay, so go ahead and find all of your non-chord tones in the Ach Gott und Herr example and discuss amongst yourselves for clarity.